more now on the actual process on Monday and the thought going into it from both sides. CNN's Jessica Schneider has that.
This is election interference.
Donald Trump's outsized personality could present a challenge to lawyers Monday as they set out to find 18 unbiased Manhattan residents to decide Trump's criminal hush money case. You have a former president of the United States, someone who is very controversial. How difficult is it going to be to seat a jury based on the defendant here?
I think it's going to be difficult. It's going to take a long time.
Dr. Leslie Ellis has worked as a jury consultant for 25 years. She estimates it could take more than a week for lawyers to settle on 12 jurors plus 6 alternates. And for both sides, it may be more about weeding out the wrong ones than finding the right ones.
One sort of overriding premise of jury selection is that it's a misnomer. It's jury deselection. It's sort of finding those 2 or 3 people who really sort of scare you for whatever reason and to get rid of them.
Hundreds of potential jurors will arrive at the Manhattan Criminal Courthouse Monday morning. Once inside the courtroom, they'll come face to face with Trump. He has the right to sit through jury selection, and sources tell CNN he plans to be there. Anyone with conflicts, like knowing someone involved in the case or strong biases they can't disregard, will likely be immediately dismissed. Then the work begins. Each juror will have to answer 42 very specific questions out loud inside the courtroom. They range from where they live to whether they support extremist groups like QAnon, the Proud Boys, or Antifa. They'll even be asked to disclose what news organizations they listen to.
It's really getting to understand who this juror is, what this juror is going to do when he or she gets the evidence. How is this juror going to interact with his co-jurors? It's your only opportunity to get a feel for them as people and not as number 1, 2, 3, etc.
This jury will be very different from the last one Trump faced during the E. Jean Carroll defamation case. That jury was in federal court, and the jurors came not only from Manhattan, but also a diverse array of surrounding counties. This jury will only be drawn from Manhattan, where voters overwhelmingly chose Joe Biden in 2020, nearly 87% to 12%.
Political affiliation doesn't necessarily mean bias, right? And that's what they're going to have to figure out. There may be lots of reasons for somebody to vote for a candidate that don't necessarily de facto translate into a bias for or against the other candidate.
The jurors who ultimately get selected will not be known to the public. Their names, images, and identities will not be released, even though lawyers on both sides will know their names. Dr. Ellis says Trump's attorneys and prosecutors will have to be on high alert for any potential juror who might hide their true feelings in an effort to ultimately upend deliberations.
I'm not a big believer that stealth jurors are everywhere, but in a case like this, there's definitely a higher risk of a stealth juror, meaning someone who intentionally keeps quiet about an opinion to get on the jury. They're not that common. They're not as common as a lot of people think. But here, that's a real risk.
Jessica Schneider, CNN, Washington.